We all want to experience healthy love and be the best version of ourselves in relationships. And it's especially hard when you find yourself exiting something that has felt painful, not knowing where you went wrong, how you stayed for so long, and why you feel so unlike yourself anymore. Which is why I'm so passionate about my group coaching program, Becoming, designed to help you work through the mindfuck of confusing relationships alongside women who get it so that you can rewire to secure, mature, healthy relationships together. This is your time to step outside of the self help books and be held as you actually become the woman who not only can attract the emotionally available man who's doing his own work, but actually hold that healthy love because you have the tools to navigate it healthfully. This work is for you to call in that mature partnership and family that is waiting on the other side. Enrollment is happening now in January, and there are 4 spaces available. So go to briewolta.com/becoming to submit your interest form today. Welcome to this episode of Lucid Living with Bree, Learn to Live and Love Awake. I am your host, Bree Wolta, and today I have Jamie Madsen, an online business coach and a wonderful woman who I've been introduced by another wonderful woman who's also been on the podcast. We both share a love for Brandy.
Yes. Isn't that how that works? Yeah. I mean, it's just beautiful
Yeah, it's
being
really,
referred by someone that you trust and love to meet another person that you come to trust and love
yeah,
the
yeah.
best way.
I talk about like those of us who have been through some sort of toxic relationship. It's like this club that you'd never wanted to be a part of, but once you're in it, you're like this person's like, "Oh, you got to meet this person. You got to talk to this person. Like she's been through it too." And
Yeah,
it's just there's so many more people who have had this experience than I know that I ever thought I would meet.
I would agree. And so many different varieties too,
Mhm.
from personal romantic relationships to parents and siblings and coworkers and partners, so many different things. It's incredible to see how many different people are affected by um, unhealed people.
Oh yeah. And sometimes multiple, right? Multiple of the above. We've got the
Yeah,
romantic relationship and the coworker and the family member
that's right.
and us being sort of primed to put up with certain behaviors from certain people that makes total sense that we would see that in different parts of our life.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. And like you said, it's on a spectrum. So we have some that have been with full on narcissists, some that are just with people who are, acting out their wounding
A
and
smidge. Yeah.
smidge, yeah. Yeah, which is why it's so important to do this type of introspective work so that we're not just spewing all of our shit on everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I would say, and I think you would agree with me, that it's safe to say we all have to do that work, no
Yeah.
matter what side of the spectrum you're on, whether you're the victim or the narcissist, or you're teetering in the middle and playing a little bit of both, and you have unhealed wounds. And I heard someone say once before, we all have a little bit of narcissism.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all have a little bit of that
Uh-huh.
selfish nature, and that's also just being a human.
Yeah, we can't get through our life without trauma, without wounding, without adopting these beliefs about ourselves or other people or
Yeah.
love or money or whatever it is that's affecting our life the most in the moment. So
Yeah.
whatever happened is not our fault, but it is our responsibility to look
Yeah.
back at it and be like, "Oh, how is that directing my life now?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the point.
Yeah.
I mean, when I think about just life in perspective, life as a whole perspective, like we all have to heal. We all have to take responsibility. And like we said, there's different sides of the spectrum. There's different levels to it. And I think a lot of people get offended by someone, calling them out on their bullshit.
Yeah.
Um, but the sooner that you can start to take responsibility for even the things that's caused you to become the victim,
Hmm.
that's one of the hardest things too, where you've been the victim of narcissistic abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse, whatever that might be. That was one of the hardest things that I had to accept was I had to take responsibility for putting myself in that situation and
I
for
know.
staying as long as I did.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
I still remember the moment vividly in my experience where I was like, "Oh, fuck." Like, I have to take accountability for not setting the boundaries, for enabling certain behaviors, for all the things that I did that helped feed the fire. It's like, yes, he did some horrific things, and there's also pieces that I can take accountability for. And that was the moment where I was like, "This is gonna be a long road."
yeah, right? Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a very long, long, rocky road.
Yeah, yeah. What helped you come to that sort of awareness in your
Oh,
journey?
wow. Oh, gosh. So many different moments and times. It's even hard. I talk about this in business a lot because, as you know, I'm in business, online business coach, and we do a lot of branding and storytelling and identifying your brand story. And I kind of, I think about it the same way because it's so hard to pinpoint just one moment in time. Like, what was that one moment in time when everything changed?
Yep.
And I mean, there were many moments. There were many moments between parental alienation that
Mhm.
season where I didn't see my daughter for 2 months. And uh, goodness, yeah, just trying to get back up on my feet as a single mom,
Mhm.
and entering a new relationship and having a second daughter, in my new relationship with my amazing partner and
Yeah.
spouse. He's the best. Um, there were many moments, I think, especially when I had my second daughter too, and when, being a single mom raising my first daughter, realizing like it's up to me. It's up to me
Yeah.
to heal. Actually, I would say one of the times that really things started to change for me and I started to feel a sense of awakening
Mhm.
was when I started therapy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say that's when I started to wake up to some of these things I didn't even know were an issue.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I just through those conversations realized, wow, I have so much more healing to do than I even realized.
Yeah. Well, having that outside person be able to help you make sense of things and reflect back what your reality has been, and maybe help you see that, like, oh, that way of growing up was traumatic, or
Yeah,
because you might not know that. You might not,
yeah,
because it's just your normal.
yeah,
So until we start to ask questions and become curious and challenge just our like day to day knowing of what our life is,
yeah,
then we will stay asleep.
yeah.
So, yeah, that
Well,
that type
that's
of
it, right? Isn't it? I think you hit the nail on the head with curiosity.
yeah,
Curiosity is the key. It's the portal to healing. Without curiosity, without resentment,
yeah,
even if it's for your parents, and the thing to remember is that our parents did their best.
yeah,
They did the best that they could with what they
yeah,
had and the
yeah,
tools and the knowledge that they had. Um, but it's more for the awareness for
mhm,
us to
mhm,
recognize the spiritual ties that the chains that are our responsibility to break.
yeah,
But it's that point of just being curious without resenting who did
mhm,
this, because at the end of the day, ultimately, everything that's happening in our lives, it's a reflection of us. It's a
mhm,
reflection of self, what's within. So,
yeah, 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 and back to the point of the parents doing their best, it's like they might be doing something for one intention, and we might be interpreting it as a whole different story. So
that's right.
that's how we pack in these beliefs and these traumas into our body, where it's like, my mom was doing her best and she was a single mother and was trying to, get me to the things I wanted to do, but told me I couldn't do dance, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever the case is. And then
Yeah.
as a child, you interpret that as you're bad or
Neglect.
you're not
Yeah.
good enough or you're
Or yes.
stressing mom out. Like
Hmm.
we create understanding around experiences that as
Yes.
humans, we do that.
Yeah.
So we have to go back and unpack the things that we
Yeah.
have like solidified in stone.
Yep. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful that you brought that up. Even just for my own continued healing journey and awareness, being that I have two daughters. I have two daughters and a stepson, and they're amazing kids. They are just amazing kids. But I think back over the last few years of my healing journey, and I went through a divorce, And there was a lot. There was a season of like, I've got to get back up on my feet. I've got to support myself. I've got to support my kids. I've got to, not only that, but I want to figure out what I'm here to do. What am I meant for? What's my purpose here on
Yeah.
earth? So there's been a lot of that, just really diving deep into that work. And it's very easy to use it as an escape, as an outlet, especially, I don't know if you've ever heard of the wealth dynamic profiles. Have you ever taken that
No.
test, that
Uh,
examination? It's amazing, especially if you're in business, you're leading a team, if you have an organization or anything like that. It really helps to just help you figure out where you sit on the spectrum of leadership
cool.
and kind of like where you fit well into business, how you can support people. There's the supporter, there's the mechanic, there's the star, the creator, and the creator is kind of like right at the top of the profile. They're the Walt Disneys and the oh, what's his name? Who invented Apple?
Oh,
Steve Jobs.
yeah, thank you. I
Yes.
had a brain fart too.
Yeah, yeah, the Steve Jobs of the world. And turns out I'm a creator. And
Ah,
so something, it was very another, great just piece of awareness as
yeah,
you're building your life and designing your life. And so I learned that about myself through the season where I was just like hustle, hustle, hustle. And I mean, first thing in the morning, I'm on my phone up
yeah,
until late, late at night where the kids are, playing around and I'm locking myself in the bedroom to try
mhm,
to continue working on my stuff without setting those boundaries.
yeah,
And so that's been a huge piece of awareness for me. And being able to connect the dots between my parents and their behavior and
yep,
now my behavior and just really, yeah, just giving yourself that gut check that like,
yeah.
yeah, having those realizations that we might be repeating cycles here.
And that's how you interrupt the generational trauma,
Yeah.
right? Like generational trauma, part of how it's passed down is the dysregulation of the nervous system. So if my mom was dysregulated, she became dysregulated because she never got regulation from her mom,
Yep.
right? And if my mom's dysregulated, she can't regulate me because kids need the co-regulation. So therefore I become dysregulated and then need to adopt all of these maladaptive ways to try to regulate and try to feel loved and comforted.
Wow.
And it's just, it's so, it's like obvious, I guess, when you look at it that way of like, oh yeah, this is how we pass it down. Like,
Yeah.
and if one generation decides to do their work and look at their stuff and regulate and use the tools to help like not have to be in the same cycle,
Yeah.
then you provide that for your kids and all of the future generations.
Wow. Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, it's where grace plays a huge role.
Yeah.
It's that awareness and curiosity without resentment, because we
Yeah.
know that this it doesn't stop and end with them.
Yeah.
Um, my mom is one of 15 children,
Oh my God, really?
born and raised in England, Northern England, north of London.
Wow.
And her parents both died when she was 9 years old, a month apart from each other.
Wow.
And they both had cancer. One died, and then a month later, the other. I honestly don't even know in which order.
Wow.
Um, yeah, really tragic, super tragic story. A lot of trauma, a lot of sense of abandonment. But with that also came the Cinderella story, because she was placed in a home with one of her older siblings and his wife, who were very abusive.
Oof.
And so through this journey the last few years, that story has come up a lot. A
Yeah.
lot. It just really unpacking it all. And my mom and I have a fantastic relationship. We talk several times a week, and she's
Yeah.
one of my best friends. But there
Yeah.
was a long time where it was like, why is she that way?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
questioning like, this isn't fair for her to, and this behavior doesn't make sense. And then but when you apply grace and you look at the bigger picture, start to realize that this is not what she's carrying is not her. What I'm carrying, this is not me.
Yes.
This is not mine. I say that all the time. If I start to feel a sense of anger or resentment or passive aggression, bitterness, any of those like yucky behaviors that we just try to avoid as
Yeah.
best as we can, but we're still human, right?
Yeah.
And I think that awareness when that comes up is like, oh, wait, this is not mine. It's not my mom's either. It's not my dad's. It's not, this is just programming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's my responsibility to change it, not point fingers.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And thank you for taking that responsibility for
oh, yeah.
yourself and your children, because a lot of parents don't, right? A lot of parents act out in their trauma and cause a lot of pain and then don't understand how they've hurt other people.
Yeah.
So you being
Yeah.
aware and being willing to be like, "Oh, I just acted passive aggressively. Like, let me rewind. Let me
Yeah.
make amends to whoever I need to, make amends with, clear the conversation and then
Yeah.
move forward." And that's how we are human with children too, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to make mistakes,
Yep.
but I'm going to circle back and make sure you're okay and we're going to talk about it instead of
Beautiful.
instead of leaving you to make up a story about whatever that situation was.
Wow. I remember my mom when Ruth, my older daughter, she'll be 7 next year, when Ruth was, I don't know, 3, 2 or 3, the age that they really start to have lots of temper tantrums. My mom said something to me. She was like, "Wow, I'm so just impressed at how you get down to her level and you're able to reason
Mhm.
with her at that age. That's incredible." And I'm like, you know, a lot of that has come from just unpacking the
Yeah.
the trauma and stuff. And I also, had experience in the past working in childcare centers, and so I
Uh,
learned some from some really great role models before
yeah.
having children of my own, what to do, what not to do. I was raised in a household where there was a lot of yelling,
Mm.
not quite the same anymore. Obviously, my parents have grown up quite a bit, and we've all kind of outgrown and forgiven,
Mhm.
but that was something that was huge for me. I'm like, this ends with me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, when it comes to parenting, especially any relationship, honestly, it's like, can you take responsibility
Mhm.
and deliver the why? It's that simple.
Yeah.
You can deliver the why. With so many parents are like, no, because I said so,
Yes.
right? And it ends there, because I said so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, we want to raise intelligent, thoughtful, kind, caring humans in this world who
Mhm.
aren't holding resentment, because that feeling that I give them of shutting them down and making them feel powerless and like they don't have a voice is going to stimulate that same sensation, that same thought, that same reaction for them as they get older, when they become an adult and they start businesses and they have partnerships, and then people trigger them and they're like, why am I so triggered by this? And they're reacting in ways that they don't understand, but it's because they feel that
Yeah.
sense of powerlessness. And
Mhm.
so it's our responsibility, especially at this young age. I think, what is it, up until like age 7 or 8 is like
Yeah.
the where they're really just like being imprinted with this subconscious.
You're just programming, just
Yeah,
like
subconscious
downloading
programming.
information.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's our responsibility to not just say, because I said so. I'm explaining the deeper reasoning behind it. If you take that extra 60 seconds to help them understand why you're making this decision, include them in the decision,
Yeah.
it changes everything.
Yeah.
Changes
And
everything.
And that piece too of like, not if a child is screaming, they're dysregulated. And if you come at them with anger, you're also dysregulated. So there's no regulation that can happen when both parties are up here.
Right.
If the kid's up here and you meet them here, then they have a chance to come down to your level, right? And co-regulate. And so and again, I don't have kids, so like I'm saying
No,
this
I
all
know.
from like the outsider's point of view, but when you can meet kids where they are in that way, it helps them also learn that it's safe
Yeah. Yeah.
and that they're not going to get in trouble for having a feeling, which could start a whole lifetime of not expressing your feelings or not feeling like you're worthy, or
Yeah.
there's a big cascade that can happen on the other side of that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you make the point of regulation, because
Mhm.
I think that's so essential. I never really looked at it that way, if I'm being honest, but I mean, regulation is so. I actually saw um, a content creator share this. It might have been even like a year ago, where she was co-parenting, and she was talking about when her kids come home from her ex-husband, the first thing that she does is turn on music and they have a dance party,
Oh.
and she helps
Oh,
them to regulate the nervous
that's cool.
system. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
so
cool.
that's something we've applied that several times. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
my youngest has not, or my oldest has not seen her father in a while, but
Yeah.
that's still something that we do. It doesn't just have to be when they come back, but it could also be um just when
Whenever.
they're feeling sad, when
Yeah.
they're feeling sad, when they're feeling angry. It's like,
Yeah.
little cues and things that we can do to help them reset the nervous system. I love
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, they don't know how to do that yet, right? Those are things
Yeah,
that we learn. So
yeah,
when you're little, you have to be taught. And if you're taught by absence of having the thing, that's also learning how to not be regulated.
that's right.
So yeah, I think that's incredible.
Awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about your story. We've touched on some pieces of your first daughter and the divorce. And so fill us in a little bit on what that experience was like to be with your ex.
Really do have to go back to the beginning to really understand the evolution of
Yeah.
myself
Yeah. Yeah.
and how I ended up to where I am today. Because the thing about it is, as I mentioned, I'm a creator on the wealth dynamic profile, which means I've always been that way. And I can speak to that. I've always sort of been a visionary, if you will.
Mhm.
Like I've had the dream of just living life to the fullest. It makes sense that I'm an entrepreneur today,
Yeah.
but um back when I was much younger and wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life yet, it acted out in the form of moving across the country by myself. This is my story is I packed up my cat and my skis and my Honda CRV and I drove from New England to Colorado at the age of 18. And I'll tell you, I mean, it was I could not wait to get there. I
Yeah.
mean, I had been dreaming of it since I was probably 15,
Yeah.
wanting to move, wanting to just that sense of freedom and adventure, and being able to go off on my own. And
Yeah.
my mom actually drove with me. And I remember she when we got here, she was like, I felt this feeling of like, why is she still here? Like, I want to be free finally, you
Mm.
know? And as I've grown and developed, that freedom has evolved into me creating a business, community, relationships in my community, relationships with people in my close circle that are really helping me to just design the life that I've always dreamed of, right?
Yeah.
But there were some hiccups along the way. There were several hiccups that stalled that growth, that stalled that evolution. And over the last, I would say, 3 years of my life, I've really we've made a lot of progress. We
Mhm.
made a lot of progress in that dream. It's amazing how quickly things can change when you align yourself in the right circumstance, uh, to go after your passion and not hold yourself back from what it is that you feel truly called to do. There's that idea of like there's so many people out there who are working their 9 to 5 job because of the safety and the security versus deciding like I am going to, even if it's like slowly but surely over time, just work on creating things. So we all, I think go through experiences that slow down our growth or hinder our ability to align with our fullest potential. One of those things for me happened to be a relationship, which I
Mhm.
mean makes sense, especially after this last few years of therapy, recognizing like, oh, I I married my father.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
familiar.
it was a familiar, yeah, it was a
Mhm.
familiar feeling. And whereas again, I have a great relationship with my father as well. Not nearly as much narcissistic behavior. Again, we said like there's different levels to
Yeah.
this, but it was
Yeah.
still there was a familiarity. My dad was very busy. Again, I don't resent him for that, but in my younger years, my dad was very busy with work. He was very stressed out. He let things, create this reaction in him, anger, feelings of being upset. All that stuff felt very normal. So when I experienced that in this relationship early on, to me, I think, my subconscious mind said, this is familiar. This is
Yeah.
normal. This is okay. This means he loves me.
Well,
This
there's
means he loves me.
comfort. Yeah, there's comfort
Yeah.
in the familiar. And
Yeah.
that's why we find ourselves in relationships with our parents because or people who replicate our parents because it's like part of me feels safe here even though this isn't a safe environment.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And here's the thing about it. My parents have been married for 30 years. They're still married. They're happily married. They're still in love with each other and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. My dad has been able to take responsibility for, we've had conversations about where he went wrong as a parent when we were younger. And that is so that's honorable. That's forgiving.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's when the person has zero ability to feel a sense of remorse
Yeah.
or accountability for their actions. And so that was my experience. That was my experience when I met this person who was swept me off my feet.
Mm.
Just he made me feel just so special and so important. And meanwhile, the entire time, this person, I felt like I found the absolute love of my life. He was sleeping with a girl down the hall in our apartment building and was like, hey, I'm going to go out for a beer for a couple hours
Wow.
and then would come back. And, I'd up until Ryan, the amazing, wonderful, spectacular human that I'm with today,
Yeah.
I'd been cheated on by every boyfriend I've ever had. It makes you wonder, it's like, was there something really wrong with me? Or was it, it was more of who I was choosing.
Hmm. Yeah.
And my father he was never a cheater, but he displayed all of the characteristics of an avoidant personality. And typically, I think that goes hand in hand with avoidant personalities is cheating.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, again, just that familiarity. And so from that point forward, or I should say, when I met my ex, I was actually trying to sell him bulletproof window glass. He worked for a car dealership. So that doesn't speak to my creator. I was like, yeah, this guy's cute. He seems, like somebody I would date, and I was totally into him, but I was like, I'm still gonna try to, sell him on these bulletproof because that was my focus. I was
Yeah.
always like, I had a friend whose son started this company and he was growing the company and I wanted to be a part of it. It felt really exciting to me. I wanted to be a part of that. So, yeah, that was my focus at the time. I was also going to massage therapy school. I was working a ton. I was building my life. I was doing what anybody would be doing at
Hmm.
20 years old.
Yeah.
And then quickly things just felt like a roller coaster, which again, that familiarity, because even though in a different context when I was younger, that's really how it was. I mean, it was up and down all the time, unpredictable outbursts of anger and emotion and yelling and screaming. And so after meeting him, 2 months after meeting him, we moved to Washington State, where I found out within a couple months that I was being cheated on again
Mm.
with multiple women. At that point, we were living with his mom. Um, it was kind of that transition because he lost his job in Colorado. So it was this like frantic, I have to move. I want you to come with me. I'm in love with you. We move in. We live there for 6 months. And I'm being cheated on the entire
Mm.
time. During that season, I find out that I'm pregnant with my first daughter. So it was very emotional. It was very emotional. It was very devastating.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of hurt, a lot of resentment packed in there.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I know that this podcast is really mostly about, living awake and identifying at
Mhm.
what point in your life that you felt asleep. I saw that in your
Yeah.
little notes in there. So
Yeah.
I would say that was probably the moment where I shut down.
Yeah.
I
Too
shut
much.
down. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say I felt resentment. I mean, I know it was there.
Hmm.
It's obviously there, but to be honest with you, I don't remember. There's a
It's,
lot between those few years that were just blackout.
yeah, it sounds like the freeze, a fight, flight, or freeze, right? You went into
Yeah.
a survival mode where it
Yep.
was too much to
Yep.
try to make sense of or to handle. So part of you just like
Yep.
went to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Mhm.
And that is where I think he started to turn to. He lost it
Yeah.
because he he couldn't handle the fact that I wasn't fully in love with him.
Yeah.
And so there was that desperate need for assurance that I could not give.
Yeah.
And so naturally, we're living in a very toxic, unhealthy relationship,
Yeah.
about to have a baby. I get proposed to, we have a wedding, and I'll never forget. I will never forget this. And this is hard. This is really hard. But I remember walking down the aisle. I'm I think 4 months pregnant at this point. So just, I was tiny. It was really my second daughter. It was like pop. I was, big, but you can see a little bit in the wedding photos. I'm definitely pregnant, but still pretty tiny. And I'm walking down the aisle with my dad, and I was prepared to say vows. I had written them, I had rehearsed them. And as I'm walking down the aisle, this voice pops into my head, so clear, so
Mm.
clear. You will be divorced in 3 years.
Wow.
You will be separating and leaving this man. You will be divorced in 3 years. And I got up to the aisle and I just froze. I couldn't say anything. I didn't say my vows. So he said his and I didn't say mine.
Yeah.
I can't
Wow.
even imagine what everyone in the in the, in the stands were thinking. Like we had
Yeah.
it but on video. There were people from family members from across the country watching. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Mm. Your poor
Yeah.
like nervous system was just like, we're taking over. We are going down.
It was like living in I don't know, like just an altered reality. Like it
Yeah.
just didn't even feel real. I felt like a puppet. I was just
Yeah.
doing what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
There's that sense of Catholic guilt, I think, that I've had to unravel. I was raised New England, small Connecticut town. Catholicism is pretty much the maybe not so much anymore, but at least growing up,
Mm.
um, that was the foundation of our family. We're a big Italian family.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so there was that sense of guilt, especially getting pregnant out of wedlock. You got to do what you're meant to do. My grandmother flew out from New England to the wedding in Washington as a surprise. She actually ended up passing away a few months afterwards.
Oh, wow.
So it was like that special, we got grandma out. I did what I was supposed to do. I remember feeling that like
Yeah.
I did it. I
Yeah.
made everything right, even though I made a mistake, and I'm sure grandma's still proud of me.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
living for others.
I can imagine that like when you had that thought pop in your head of you're going to be divorced in 3 years, was that also followed by like a panic or a fear of like I shouldn't be doing this?
Well, yes, absolutely. More of just an awkward, uncomfortable, what am I doing? But I'm just gonna ignore those feelings and just
Yeah.
keep because what am I gonna do now?
Right.
The day before the wedding, there was an incident. Um, there'd been a lot of incidents. I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, there'd been a lot. But the day before the wedding, there was an incident where I had a little orange cat. We actually had two of them, Suki and Oscar.
Mm.
And Suki had ended up disappearing. They went outside and he came back and she didn't. So we had Oscar for a couple years after, maybe a few years, yeah, after the incident. And this one day, I can't recall why or what happened, some type of anger outburst. He picked up the cat, threw it across the room,
Mm.
and it hit against the fireplace and essentially dislocated his rib cage.
Oh,
The poor little guy was just limping. His whole rib cage was like sideways. And somehow I did like little kitty cat chiropractic
Oh,
adjustment. I don't even know how I did it. It was just like,
wow.
this is not normal. This is not right. And it set back in place. Might
Wow.
have even broke his spine. I don't know. Again, I was so asleep at that time. It was like,
Yeah.
he seems okay. He's not crying anymore. So we're just gonna move on with
Mm.
life, ignore it. Well, I had a counselor, we had a marital counselor, and I called him that day. And there, as I mentioned, there was a lot of incidents that had come to him for in the past that he had sometimes, he was a theological counselor as well. So, there was that sense of marriage is a holy unity and
Mm.
God brought you together for a reason. So we're going to figure out a solution. But then there were some red flags that started to come up where he pulled me to the side and was like, this is not normal. You
Okay.
realize this
Yeah.
is not normal, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, well, what am I going to do about now? And he was our officiant. He actually was who we chose to marry us.
Mm.
And I called him the day before the wedding and I said to him, I told him the story of what happened. And he said to me, Jamie, you do not have to go through with this.
Wow.
You realize you don't have to get married. And I remember saying to him on the phone, I'm like, it's too late. It's too late.
Mm.
I can't say no now. Thank you. And I remember just being very like, just feeling so vulnerable,
Yeah. I bet. Oh my gosh.
so weak, so trapped.
Mhm.
Just, there's no choice. No, of course I have to get married. I'm
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That trapped is like an understatement, I think, in so many ways of like, of course, there could have been other roads to take in that, but I
Oh, yeah.
understand in that moment of like when you're in a stress response and you're frozen and you're dissociating, like
Yeah.
there's very narrow ability to problem solve. So to
Tunnel
just keep
vision.
going and put your foot in front of the other and literally walk down the aisle, like
Mhm.
I understand why you did it for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Right.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. And
Yeah.
he was also the same person that I called 3 years later as I was sitting on the floor of my our house,
Yeah.
sobbing, the house
Mhm.
where I had a state restraining order filed. However, it'd been also manipulated for months that if I were to show up on the property, I would go to jail because I would be in violation of the restraining order.
Mm.
So there's that part of the story.
Jeez.
I don't know if we'll have enough time to get into all of that today, but yeah, I sitting on the floor sobbing. There's beer cans overflowing out of every garbage can. There's women's soiled underwear on
Mm.
a air mattress in the living room with my daughter's toys all around and dirty wine glasses at the sink and just dust everywhere. That I mean, it was devastating. It was devastating. Still holes in the walls from all of the outbursts. And I called him and I said, I don't know what I'm gonna do. What am I gonna do? And he's like, if you need a blessing, this is it. In the
Yeah.
name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
you can leave. It's okay to
Go.
leave.
Go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your marriage is over.
Yeah.
And I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to say that to me. I needed somebody to tell me that it was okay, that
Hmm.
I didn't have to keep hanging on. And, you know, in light of that discussion of taking responsibility, there was also a lot that happened throughout that time that I did that I'm not proud of
Yeah.
while living asleep.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because I look back at that time and I go, wow, there were so many decisions that I made, so many things that I did that I was just really off living in fairy tale la la land when
Mhm.
I could have been leaving. I could
Yes.
have been working on myself. I could have been
Yeah.
going after my dream. I could have been getting stable.
Yeah.
But there's that sense of fear. There was, the constant suicidal threats. If you leave me, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that embedded into that it's like, well, I can't leave, but I'm unhappy. So what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
Look for
Suffer.
the closest sense of
Yeah.
um serotonin and adrenaline and
Yeah. Yeah. That
drinking
that
alcohol. Yeah,
whatever you can do to numb the reality.
that's right.
And that fantasy place, I call that potential land. And
Ah, yeah.
to
Yeah.
me, in my escapism from reality, it was like that was the place that I went to where I could hope that things would change. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, he will go to therapy and then he will start to see his shit and then he will take accountability and then we'll be okay and then we'll be able to get married and, this won't be painful anymore. So if I was living there in that place of hope, then I didn't have to be in reality where it was like all signs point to him not doing any of those things, not caring to do any of those things. But I wasn't ready to see it yet. I wasn't ready to acknowledge what that
Yeah.
meant
Yeah.
because leaving was really scary. Like
Yeah.
that whole process of what is that going to be and what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And is he going to be violent? Is he going, all of those things were, it was too much. So my brain was just like, we're going to dissociate over here. We're going to stay in potential land.
That's right. Potential land. Wow.
Yeah.
What a place to be, I'll tell you that.
It's not a
Not
sustainable
much
place.
actual potential there. It's quite deceiving.
Yeah. It's not the solution for sure, but it is.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. So while you were in this, I'm just going to go on a limb and say
Let's go deep. Yeah.
you are not creating, you are not living your purpose of that drive of selling the bulletproof glass. Like I can just imagine you with so much energy and excitement and like, desire to help your friend grow his business and that ambition and that motivation to then
Yeah.
be in a relationship where like literally all of your energy, your sense of self, your worth, your confidence is just sucked out of you.
Forced to play small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like going from such a big place to such a small place?
Well, kind of like we said, evolution can happen in two different directions. You're either
Yeah.
going to live out your life's purpose and break generational cycles and become fully awake, or you're going to go in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that I think is really beautiful about my story is that I never fully lost that sense of drive.
Mm.
It was like the one thing that I had to hang on to between that and being a mom and knowing, you know, I wanted to, I wanted her to see that I tried. And so, unfortunately, however, when you're in that circumstance, you enter survival mode. And
Yeah.
so during that season is actually when I got my real estate license, which I held for 8 years up until this last year when I fully stepped into my passion as an
Nice.
online business coach. But there was a long period of time where I was just a hustle. I mean, I was just in a pure hustle mode. So very, very toxic, very unhealthy relationship with my work. I was doing it out of desperation. Obviously, I was in a desperate situation. And so
Yeah.
that reflected in my job. And I think I did the best that I could in the beginning of my career. But the year that I left, I made so actually I'll back up. I had maybe made anywhere from $12,000 to $25,000 in a year with my
Mm.
real estate career. Not a
Right.
ton,
Yeah.
not a ton. I'd maybe even a little more. Maybe I think there was one year where I made like $40,000 and then we did the house flipping season right at the very end of the relationship. Ooh, Don't
Oh
flip a
boy.
don't flip a house with your soon to be ex. That's not a not a recommendation.
Yeah.
Um, but the year that I left, the year that I fully stepped out onto my own, I'm going to be a single mom, got my own house, went after it. I made $180,000.
Wow.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
And part of that was like, I mean, I was just grinding. I was like, I'm going to do whatever it is that can possibly do to
Yeah.
make this work. But it was also that sense of freedom and the ability to start manifesting my
Mm.
new reality and believing in that, believing in myself.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the
Yeah.
key. That was something that I didn't have. I had somebody, for the longest time trying to make a career work, which in the career of real estate, you gotta sit on meetings. You gotta go to coffee dates. You gotta start building relationships in your community. And any attempt to do that was sabotage between stalking me at appointments, sitting in the parking lot at the coffee shops and texting me the whole time. And that happened many
Yeah.
times to actually calling clients on the phone and asking them who they are and drilling them with questions, making them feel uncomfortable. So I would lose that client relationship and lose that deal.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that throughout that that season of life. And so obviously the freedom without somebody being able to sabotage those opportunities, as well as my inner sense of freedom and
Yeah.
belief in myself. And, instead of having somebody constantly telling me, well, you're not organized enough, you'll never be successful. This is a waste of your time. Why can't you just be a mom?
Yeah. You start to
Is she
believe
is she
that.
not good enough for you? That was a common
Yeah.
one. I still get that.
Ugh.
She not good enough for you? Yeah,
Anything that they can do to chip away your sense of self.
that's right.
And it's when we can start to see that, hopefully in the relationship, right? As you're starting to see the red flags appear and you're like, oh, he's saying these things to keep control of me, not because these things are true. And when you can step outside of the truth of those things, that frees you from so much, because when we're fed that shit over and over and over again, that becomes our dialogue. And then we start telling our own self that shit when, we just believe it,
Yeah,
which makes it even harder to leave, which is part of the game that they're playing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question fully. That
Yeah.
might have been one of those gone off on a tangent.
Yeah.
But
Well, love tangents. But I think to your point about like not only not being in the environment where he's feeding you those things, but when we're in those types of relationships, all of our energy is on either surviving or not rocking the boat so that we don't cause a fight so that we can survive, or taking care of the daughter, making sure she's okay so that we're surviving. Like it's just survival.
yeah,
There's not excess energy that we can put towards passion or, building a life for yourself. Like it's much
yeah,
harder to make that money and build that career when all of your energy is being sucked from underneath.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's that moment in between stepping into being awake. That is, it's so hard. It's so hard to do. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people in these types of relationships stay for so long
Yes.
and they allow the behavior to continue.
Yeah.
And it's that boy who cried wolf, that
Mhm.
idea of, and it's really unfortunate. I don't know if you've experienced with the court system and enabling family members and things. It's like, well, if it was that bad, why'd you stay?
Right. Oh God. The
That's
the
not the
court,
point.
it's all
That's
it's
not the
all
fucking point.
re-traumatizing. Any part of the court system is re-traumatizing.
It's very traumatizing. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
The what I hope from this podcast is that by sharing people's stories of how they have reclaimed their life and their light after leaving will help women who are in it be able to come to that moment more easily, because of
yeah,
course you're going to believe if you've been fed that you're not worth anything and that nobody's going to ever want you. Nobody's going to give you a love like this. Like this is real love. You've just never experienced this before. Of course, you're
Yeah.
going to believe that anything on the other side of this relationship is going to be scary and hard and painful. When in reality, in every case that I've been witness to in conversations or my own or with clients, it's like when you leave, your whole world opens up. And it's hard to believe in that blind faith when you're, again, being fed all of this stuff that you believe is true.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. You're in it. You're in it.
Yeah.
And I just love the work that you're doing here.
Mm.
It's so needed. Um, I view the people like yourself that are willing to step out and create a platform for
Mm.
people to heal, because talking is healing. That's why therapy exists.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
therapy is a
Yeah.
thing. Um, it's so brave.
Mm.
It's so brave. And it really takes a lot to not just to step out on your own and break away from the cycle of whether it's just your generation, or it's been a part of your lineage for
Mhm.
hundreds of years or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
There's a sense of bravery
Yeah.
that has to take place
Yeah.
when you decide to break the cycle. And then there's that, I think, that next level of healing where some of us decide that this needs to be talked about more.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you're doing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you. I want to help women feel less ashamed and less embarrassed. That's the number one thing I hear from clients where they're just like, I can't believe I stayed. I can't believe I allowed this to happen. And hindsight is a bitch because it's like, well, you can see it now, but you didn't see it then. And so how do we meet your past self with compassion and help to heal those places that kept you in the relationship and understand those places and reduce the shame? Like there's just so much, every experience, every woman that comes out of this is just like dripping in embarrassment about it.
Yeah.
So
And it's so not
talking
necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about it, hearing other people, it just like that, you're not alone in this.
No.
And a lot of these badass women have reinvented themselves, recreated themselves, like are in thriving, healthy relationships. Like
Yeah,
it's possible.
it's possible.
All of this is possible. And as much as you're being fed that it's not and that you're worthless and all the things, it's like, how can you start listening to things like this podcast or other podcasts where it's truth of women who have made it through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all it takes is being willing to open your mind to the idea that it is possible. And I'm honored. I'm honored and a little emotional to be
Yeah.
sitting here with you today
Mm.
and saying that I am finally on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm no longer a victim
Yeah.
to that cycle. The cycle has been broken,
Yeah.
and that is really exciting. It's
Something to
really
be
exciting. Yeah.
something to be very proud of too, Jamie.
Thank
It's
you.
huge.
Yeah, I'm honored to be able to hopefully set an example for all the women that are in abusive relationships or narcissistic relationships, whether that be with a romantic partner or a parent,
Yeah.
to know that you are not chained by the belief system that you have and your current circumstances. A lot can change in a very short amount of time. It may feel for a while like it's you're climbing out of a 100-foot hole by yourself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
and somebody's throwing sticks at you from the top, and it's like, trying to dodge them, and you're like,
Yeah.
you can see the light, it's almost there. Um, yeah, it's not an easy journey,
Yeah.
but it is so fucking worth it. So
Yeah.
fucking worth it.
I want to circle back to something you said, I think when you were on the phone with your your spiritual advisor, or I don't know what his title is,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
where you were like, I wanted my daughter to know that I didn't give up or that I tried everything that I could. And I hope that women can start to see these experiences as I want my daughter to see the strength that it took to make myself safe or to put myself first. Because staying in something that's abusive or you're unhappy in any regard
Yeah.
is not serving you or them.
Yeah.
And I hope that as women start to shift their thinking around these types of things, it's like, no, the strength is in the divorce. The strength is in walking away and putting the restraining order. Like when you're with someone who isn't safe, that's the fucking strength.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that realization of this this is my responsibility to take care of me. There's that belief when you are in one of these relationships that if you are taking care of yourself, you're selfish. And if the focus isn't all on them and how you can serve them and make their life better, then there's something
Yeah.
wrong with you.
Yeah.
And so, how many women are out there just people pleasing, living to
Mhm.
serve others? I mean, think about the way that I chose to marry, even though I would, it was
Yeah.
evident. Even my fucking pastor, my fucking officiant told me not to do it.
You needed to please
And I
grandma.
still was like, but grandma's coming. Like, what? You know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's that transition that happens when you decide. And that's the beautiful thing about having daughters. I'm so grateful. I was meant to be a girl mom. I was
Yeah.
meant to be a girl mom because it's showing me what I have to break for them and
Yeah.
who I have to become. And I'm showing them that you can't show up as your fullest self unless you take care of you. And only you can decide what you need. Nobody else can tell you,
Yeah.
oh, well, you need to do more of this. You need to do more of that.
Yeah.
No, that's on you. And sometimes it's a 5 minute cry sesh in the bathroom. Somebody came up with another name for it. Oh, I can't think of what it's called, but it was hilarious. It's like a new name for the bathroom. It's like a sacred, like this is my I can't if I think of it, I'll send it to you.
Okay. That's
But
amazing.
yeah, sometimes you need a cry sesh
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
bathroom stall. Sometimes you need to go take a drive on your own.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be able to put your head in your work for a little while and your creative and let your creative energy flow so you get that sense of fulfillment. Like, I
Yeah.
just need an hour. Lock the door.
Yep. Yeah. I'm so excited for children that are growing up with parents who are actively doing their work. Like
Absolutely.
I've just witnessed some people parenting where they're again on their kids' level, they're talking to them like a human. They're not telling them to shut up and, because I said so. And I know our parents were just doing what they were modeled, like, and I'm so excited that this generation is learning a new model
Yeah,
because wow, like these kids are going to have some kind of trauma and some kind of shit from it, I'm sure of it, but like not the same ancestral things, hopefully, that we're just unconsciously
absolutely.
passed down.
Yeah, we'll fuck up in our own unique
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
But the point of it all is that we're trying.
Yes.
And I think our generation, something that we are doing a really fucking good job at is this realization that we have a duty to break the cycle.
Yeah.
This is not like our parents had the same thing. This is
Yeah.
just, this is the evolution of humanity.
Yeah.
And we just happen to be in this wave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We're
it's our job to elevate the consciousness as best as we can while we're here.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty simple.
Yeah. I think all generations have had that like that like yes, we need to break it, but ours, like you said, is we've got the tools. We've
Yeah.
got the tools to actually be able to do it. and
Yeah.
to step outside of this little comfort zone of dysfunction that we've been
Yeah,
like live homesteading in for all of these generations. It's
exactly.
really it's really cool, and it's a really big honor for those of us who choose to dive into that.
That's
Um,
right.
and for your kids, yes, but also for you, like for you to experience a life that is different and awake.
Fulfilling.
And
Yeah.
yes, like what is the point if we're not
Yeah,
feeling that in our life? Like,
exactly. Yeah. What is the
yeah,
point? That's the $1 million question,
yeah,
right? I love what you said. It's exciting for the next generation. I'm excited for my daughters. And I had this big realization over this last week. Last week was, as you are aware, I have a local community business, which, as we're dreaming it up, could eventually turn into something much bigger than we even realized. And it really kind of happened by accident. But last week, last Thursday night, we held our end of year gala. It was our end of year event. We had close to 130 women show up to this event. We had dining tables, candles lit. We had a videographer and a photographer. We actually just got the photos back this morning. It was beautiful. It was
oh,
surreal to see something play out so beautifully. That's not alone, of course. I have a partner, I have a team.
yeah,
We put on together, and to watch all these women, this our motivational speaker put on such a magnificent speech. And it was sort of a workshop style. So a lot of the women there were journaling throughout the event and taking notes. And I'm standing up there and just watching it happen. And
no,
I thought I had this moment while I was standing up there of realizing, like, my daughter could be the next to run this.
wow,
She hasn't come to one of those events yet. We actually did have a little one come. We had Miss Heidi Camus, who's the wife of Dude Dad. I don't know if you're
oh
familiar with him.
no,
He's got a big following. He's a big YouTuber.
okay,
He's got, I mean, I think close to 1 million Instagram subscribers. Yeah,
wow,
he's got a big following. Yeah, super funny videos, and they just recently moved to Colorado from California, and with their little family, I think they have about 4 kids. And she came to our event. She actually brought her daughter.
oh,
She was so cute. I'll tell you this quick little story of her. She was so cute. I went over to her and I said, "Hi, sweet." It's so funny because it's like we've got all these adult grown women dressed to the nines at this big gala. And then we've got this cute little 6 or 7, I think she was maybe 7-year-old little girl. And she's just sitting there with a bucket of candy in front of her. And I went up to her and I said, "Hi, sweetie, how are you doing? You having a fun night?" And she leans in really close and she goes, "Have you been a good girl this year?" I was like, I think so. Been doing my best, that's for sure. And she pulls out a piece of candy and then just like sneakily slides it over on the table. And she goes, "Here for you."
amazing,
It was great. It was great. But, I think between having her there, and just like, this surreal moment of realizing like, wow, here I am, like impacting all these women's lives. And we're not just doing this for us, we're doing this for our future generation.
yeah,
And thinking, I think the next event we're going to try to set it up so that my daughter can come and be a part of it. And she knows mom puts on these big extravagant events several times a year, and I get
yeah,
all dressed up and it's a big orchestration, whatever the word is for that.
yeah,
And but she doesn't really have, she hasn't experienced it.
yeah,
And so I think, the right time will come for her to experience it.
hmm,
But just, leading with that understanding of, we're not just doing this to dress up once a quarter and drink champagne. This is we're changing our lives so we can change the lives of future generations.
yeah.
Like that,
Ah,
the
fuck
idea that
yeah.
that changes everything.
Changes everything. Oh my God. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's
it's an
just so
honor.
it's the ripple effect, it's just you choosing that one courageous step has allowed you to enter this pool where you're creating ripple of touching so many women, probably more than you even will ever know.
That's probably right. Yeah, you're probably, I mean, we hear it all the time in the community. I mean, I've been like getting my hair done and a woman's like, "You look really familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?" And then my stylist is like, "Oh, she is with Noco Women in Business." And they're like, "Oh my God, I know them. That's so cool." And it's like, it's just cool to be out there and people are like, start to recognize the work that you're and they thank you too. They're like, "Wow,
Yeah.
thank you. I attended one of your events and because of that event, I met this person and now
Yeah.
we're lifelong friends and I started my business because I was inspired so much to go after my dream." And yeah, I mean, it's so cool.
So cool. Oh, oh my gosh. Well, we could talk forever.
Could I could.
But the way that I like to wrap these up is by pulling an oracle card.
Ooh, I love this.
So I would love for you
Okay.
to help if you're open to it.
So
So
open.
go ahead and close your eyes and just tune into the energy of the deck, the energy of the shuffle. If you have any thoughts, intentions, just place them in your mind's eye. Whenever you feel like the shuffle's complete, just tell me when to stop. Okay. Okay. So you can open your
Yes.
eye. Look up precious is what we got.
Ooh,
It's kind of a little bit of a scary looking card.
what's that?
Red tears coming
Yeah.
out of a woman's
Wow.
eyes.
Wow.
I'm gonna read what it says
Please.
here. Look up, precious. Shame doesn't live here. Raise your eyes and stand tall. Others may have hurt you or sent you messages that you are not enough. They were wrong. You are enough. You are lovable. You are whole. Look up, precious reminds you that you are worthy. No need to cast your gaze down any longer. Raise your eyes and find your balance. Be courageous and be bold. Look around you and see your place. Look Up Precious gives you the ability to spin and dance with a 360-degree view of this world where you are perfectly placed and perfectly whole.
Wow.
They're always spot on.
You know, what a beautiful just message to relate to exactly what we've been talking about here today.
Mhm.
But also, what keeps coming to mind for me as you read that was even subconsciously, I think, I wanted you to pull that not just for me, but for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this like I've had this kind of like message circling that message is not just for me.
Yeah. You're
That's
the,
that's for a lot of women.
yeah. You get to be the conduit to help
Yeah,
choose the card, but the message is for anybody who's listening. Like this
that's
is
right.
if you're here, you're meant to be here. You're meant to hear that in this moment. And
Exactly.
I believe that deeply.
I believe that too. That's beautiful.
Ah, well, Jamie, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with on where they can find you? Anything that you want to plug as we end?
Oh, thank you. I guess we could end this with mentioning my focus for 2024 is leadership. And so I'm taking a big leap in my life and my business and stepping into the role of becoming a leader.
Mm.
So my intention, my focus for 2024 is leadership, and my word of the year is become.
Ooh,
Yeah, I know. We actually pulled that at the event last week. All of us chose our word, and those were the word that stood out to me was become. And my focus for the year is leader, is being a leader. And so, I would say if anyone that's listening can relate and has the aspiration to whether that be in the coaching space, that's my sort of my primary target audience, if you will, is to help coaches and creatives step into their role as a leader. And that can manifest in speaking, that can manifest in developing an online course, that can manifest into creating a podcast of your own. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're doing over this next year to really put a focus on leadership. And if that aligns with you, I'd love to have you follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Jamie Madsen Official.
Amazing.
I don't know if you put that in the little show notes or
Yep.
something.
Yeah, I'll link it all.
Yeah. And I'd be honored. I'd be honored to have you as a part of my community. So,
Ooh, becoming is the name of my group coaching program. And I fell in love with it. Becoming is the name of my group coaching, and awakening is the name of my individual coaching. And it's like, yeah, because we're becoming the women that we want to be. We're becoming the best version of ourselves and what that looks like in this iteration, this moment. So love that. Love that for
beautiful.
you.
Great work, sis.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Uh, well, Jamie, it was such a pleasure. Thank you for taking your time and vulnerably sharing your story. I know this platform hasn't been one that you has shared on before. So I really feel honored that you trust me and the audience and wanna spread your truth.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the space and the time. I'm honored. So hopefully we'll have a chance to do it again.
Yes, absolutely. And for all of those of you who are listening, if this episode resonated, please give us a 5-star review. It helps for other women to find the podcast. And as always, share this with a girlfriend who might be in need, who might need that extra little bit of support. We appreciate you. And until next time, we'll say goodbye for now.
Bye bye.
A reminder that enrollment is happening now through January for my group coaching container, Becoming, and there's only 4 spaces available. If you want to submit your interest form, please go to briewalta.com/becoming. You can also click through the link in the show notes.